Hi, my friends, and welcome to Master of Horror, where I bring you the most scariest stories that I've ever come by. Please like and subscribe, and if you do comment, please let me know what type of paranormal stories you would like for me to say in my next video. So please enjoy these 3 true Wendigo and horror stories with thunderstorm sounds. Now, my friend, let's begin. Scary true story number 1, The Walking Cheetah. I'm a mechanic, and in the 1960s I was about 19 years old, and I had just gotten done working late on some cars at the shop. I was really tired, and it was about 9 o'clock p.m. or so, and I can remember saying goodbye to the owner of the shop and making my way back home on the road. This location was in the Bridgewater Triangle area, which is known to be a very paranormal hotspot. I don't live in it, but I did have to drive through it every day to and from work. I remember that day that I was truly tired and I just wanted to make it home. I was driving down the highway and it was surrounded by woods on both sides. I was about 10 minutes away from home. As I was driving, I noticed that my light above my head started flickering. I really didn't pay much attention to it. I kept driving, but a couple of minutes later, my car started shaking. Then it completely stalled out. I was surprised because I've always kept up with my vehicle, especially working on cars as a career. I pulled over to the side of the road. I got out of my car with a flashlight and I made my way over to the hood of the car and I opened it. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. The engine was in great condition. I heard a noise coming from the right side of me in the woods near the side of the road. It sounded like a couple of branches breaking. I then shined my flashlight towards that direction, but I didn't see anything. I felt really vulnerable being out there alone in the pitch black. I then leaned over under the hood, shining my flashlight at the engine, trying to figure any reason of why my car would stall out. Just then, something pushed me to the ground on my back, and my flashlight rolled away from me, and I couldn't see anything. I just felt something on top of me. Whatever was on me was scratching me, and was also punching me over and over again. At the same time, it was cursing at me. I remember screaming for my dear life. I reached over and I was able to grab my flashlight and started hitting the creature that was on me with the flashlight. That's when I finally got a good look at it, with the flashlight shining every so often on its face. What I saw petrifies me to this day. It was a creature with a cheetah-like face, but it had small horns and its eyes were glowing red, and it was covered in black fur, and it had claws that were covered in blood. I continued screaming and hitting the creature with the flashlight, but it didn't do anything to the creature. Just when I felt like there was no hope and I was going to die, I saw headlights coming down the highway, and it shined right on me and the creature as we were laying in the middle of the road. The creature then turned towards the lights coming down the road and jumped off of me and ran straight into the woods. I turned towards the car that was parked in the middle of the road with its light still shining on my face, and a man slowly came out of the car and walked towards me. He asked me if I was okay. I told him, did he see what was on the road that was attacking me? He said yes, that I was actually attacked by a large wolf. He said that when it ran back in the woods, it was running on its back hind legs like a human. At that point, I was petrified. I knew that what attacked me was no human or no animal. The man then gave me a ride to the police station where I filed the report, and later on that night they searched the area but found nothing. I'm now 64 years old, and I will never ever second guess my story. It really did happen to me, and I'll never forget it. Scary true story number 2. The Imaginary Kid. When I was about 11 years old, my dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot from place to place, and I hardly ever had the chance to make friends. We moved into a neighborhood that didn't have many kids. I would ride my bike around the block and basically would try to find something to do. One day, I was riding my bike, and there was a kid standing on the sidewalk. He looked nice, and he smiled and introduced himself as Jack. We made friends pretty quick. He pointed to the house behind him and told me that's where he lived. It looked pretty big, but it had a scary look to it, kind of like a Victorian house. The neighborhood that we were in had pretty old houses in it, but we had a pretty good house too, with my dad being in the military. My house was in a cul-de-sac area down the road from Jack's house, about 11 houses down. I started going over to his house, but he would never let me in his house. We would always play outside. After about 2 weeks, I noticed that he would never hold anything in his hands. He would always use his hands as guns. He would always hide behind trees and would act like Indians and cowboys. There were many times that I brought my toys over, and he'd be excited about it. But again, he would never pick them up. It came to a point to where I really didn't care about that. I was just happy that I had made a friend. But everything came crashing down one night. I was extremely thirsty, and I wanted a glass of water. I then asked him, is there any way he can give me something to drink from his house? And he said, I can't go inside because my parents don't want me to come inside at this time. I got really upset and told him if I could please talk to his mom myself, that I wanted a glass of water. I was pretty tired because we had played for about 3 hours. I kept asking him, but he really got upset and he told me, no, I can't. I just can't. I just remember getting really upset at him and getting on my bike and riding back to my house. And I stopped playing with him for about a week. But one day I got really bored and I got on my bike and I decided to go around the block. I saw him outside in front of his house, smiling, just like the first time I saw him. He waved me down and told me that he was really sorry for getting upset at me. I told him that it was my fault and that I was sorry. We made up. He said that there was something he wants to show me really important. I was pretty surprised, and I followed him to his backyard where he told me to follow him. And there was an axe stuck in the dirt. He pointed to it and said, look what I found. It was a really old axe. He told me to pick it up, and so I picked it up. Then he brought me to a log that was on the ground nearby. He called it a special log, and he said for me to hit it with the axe. But I told him, no, you do it. Then he got upset and told me to just hit the log with the axe. I again told him, no, why don't you do it? And he said, I just can't pick it up. So I decided to just pick up the axe and slam it down on the log. So I raised the axe in the air and I counted down from 3, 2, 1, and I hit the log that was on the ground as hard as I could. But just then, a piece of the wood from the log went into the air and went directly into my right eye. I screamed and I dropped the axe and ran towards my bike. He started laughing really loud and chased me to my bike, laughing at me. I finally knew that it was a setup, a plan to get me back for leaving him that day. I got on my bike and I started riding down the road towards my house. But the scary thing is that the whole time I was riding my bike, he was right behind me laughing, behind my ear, inches away from me. He laughed all the way down the road to my house. I turned back and he wasn't even there. It was just his voice. Blood was pouring down my right eye, and my mother rushed me to the hospital, where they had to do multiple operations to try to fix my eye. But to this day, I'm still blind from my right eye. I began to realize as the days went by that it all added up, that the kid was actually a ghost. I finally realized that I was playing all those weeks with the ghost or an entity. You see, he wore the same clothes every day and never changed them. I also realized that he never grabbed or picked up anything off the ground. He never played with my toys, and he would never let me into his house or to see his parents. And on top of it all, there was no cars ever parked outside. To this day, it gives me the chills just thinking about it.
Scary true story number 3. The entity under the car. In 1990, me and my family went on a vacation to visit family in Mexico. We went shopping and spent some time with our family. It was a total of about 4 days that we were over there, and we were headed back home. We filled our tank and started our drive, but not long after filling up our tank, we then got a flat tire. We had a spare in the back, so after fixing the tire, we continued on our way back home. About an hour later, while still in Mexico, the other tire went flat. We pulled over into a tire shop that was connected to a store. My father tried turning the car back on, but it didn't want to start. My dad had a weird feeling about everything. Me and my dad got off to speak with the mechanics at the shop, but on the way up there, we noticed an old man sitting down on a bench outside the shop. The old man asked my dad what was the problem, and my dad told him that we had 2 flats, and now our car doesn't want to start. The old man said something that made my skin crawl. My dad's jaw dropped, and the hair on my arms went straight up. What the old man told us gave me nightmares to this day. He said there's a demon under your car, hanging upside down, watching us talking right now. It's looking right at you and me. My father then turned and looked under the car, and we could see a black figure hovering under the car. The old man said that the black shadow entity was following us because we brought something from Mexico that we shouldn't have. Just then, my dad remembered that he bought a hat on the side of the road from someone right before all these bad things happened. It was like a black cowboy hat. We took it to the old man and showed him the hat. The old man said someone died in that hat. My father then threw the black hat in the trash can. We got back in the car and immediately started without any problems. We then got our tire fixed and made it back home safely. I always think of this as a lesson to always pay very close attention to all the things you purchase, especially on vacation. Thank you for listening to Master of Horror, where I give you the scariest stories I've ever came by. Please check out my other videos that are guaranteed to petrify you. If you enjoyed these stories, please like and subscribe for more. Okay, my friends, until next time, have a great night. And don't forget to leave the nightlight on.